And then now we have Debbie Mitchell. She is part of the core planning team, and she was a literacy coach. Now she is a 7th grade, 8th grade teacher? 7th grade teacher. Let me get your slides up, and then you can rock and roll. Here you go.
So several years ago, in discussions with Margie, we were talking about some of the things that were going on as I was working as a literacy coach. And this is my 31st year in Metro. I've taught in the classroom 20 of those years, and 11 of the years I was a literacy coach. Last year I decided to make a change, and I've gone back in the classroom for many reasons. And so I'm seeing a different perspective of actually having my own students at this point. I've also spent the last 2 years working with the state as a Tennessee core coach and doing the trainings across the state, helping teachers learn how to teach the writing so that it will be reflected in the type of assessment that will be done, and also in teaching about the Common Core State Standards, which we no longer call Common Core State Standards, which are now Tennessee State Standards, so that we can move forward with the higher rigor and the new Tennessee Ready tests that are coming up. And that will be my role this next year with the state in helping to share what that looks like. I've also been a part of the MIST organization, where we have planned the range findings, selected the text and all of that for the writing assessments. I knew for several months before it happened what all of those were, and it was just really a struggle, because always being very careful not to say, I know what that topic is, and I know what all of that is, so that I feel really strongly about those types of trainings that we've done, that they're very effective. So if you get an opportunity to be a part of one of those, I highly recommend it. And as Margie said, I've been on the core planning team since the beginning.
Yeah, she was actually instrumental in helping us kind of decide the path, her input along with others from central office. But she had been doing it for a couple years and had some evidence to support her work. So she's going to share that with you.
So we started this at Donaldson Middle. I was there for 4 years, from 2008 to 2012. Our first step was to look at book studies, to pull together some things so that we could learn about what was being said in the research. Not just what we felt, what we thought from what we were seeing in the classroom, but how does that tie together with what is actually being stated in the research. We started with collaborative planning. That meant that all the teachers worked together based on their content of what they were teaching, so that we could plan the same type, not the same lesson, but around the same standard. So it wasn't a lockstep type of activity, even though that was the initial feeling. A lot of the teachers were afraid that, oh, we're going to go in there and she's going to tell us exactly what we're going to teach. But that was not the case. We went in and talked about the common standards. So we did a common pacing together. We talked about what goes together. Which of these standards would be best taught together? How would this flow in a logical sequence? What would we do? And then we took that information to plan our lessons. And again, it's really the dynamics of getting 4 or 5 people in the room together, so that they are all throwing out ideas and choosing, okay, well, yours sounds like it works better than mine. I'll try yours. Or this really worked for me, so let me tell you what happened. And we began to put together notebooks of lessons that were very effective. Then we moved into common assessments. We created those ourselves. We had DEA, and we found that it was only testing one. You have one question per standard, so that wasn't really helping us a lot to give us information. So we made up our own test of 4 to 5 items per standard, so that we could tell how the students were really doing. A lot of times they didn't look very good when we got the data back. It was very discouraging at first because of that. But we also learned where our deficits were, so that we could put more emphasis into that in our interventions. We did data talks with teachers. Every time there was a common assessment, every time there was DEA, we pulled the information together. We used the data warehouse extensively because it really gave us a lot of information for our students and was a lot quicker than going and digging through cumulative records in the guidance office. We also did data talks with students. Students became very prolific in their understanding of the data. And then again, we had the interventions based on that data. There was a steady growth over the 4 years we were there. That was before the TVOS levels were really put out there, so I don't have how much growth that was, but there was quite a bit of growth over those 4 years. Then I moved to DuPont Tyler. The first year I was there, we didn't really do a lot with collaborative planning. The second year, we did. We jumped into it to see what would happen. We did the common pacing again. We developed that pacing together. We looked at the SPIs. Then we did the literacy focus, and all of it was very much focused on the Tennessee state standards. So it would be an open-ended test, which I found, which is encouraging to me because the students often did much better on the open-ended test than they did on the multiple choice test, which is good because the Tennessee Ready is going to be almost all open-ended. So then the collaborative planning, again, we did the common assessments with multiple choice for the SPIs, open-ended. For the literacy focus, we again did data talks with teachers and students. The interventions were based on the data. Now, I will tell you that all teachers don't buy in. You have to convince some people that it really will work. It's a capacity building. You have to build the confidence for the teacher. But in that 1 year, 2013 to 2014, we moved from a 1 in literacy to a 4 in 1 year, which I thought was exciting. So again, I'm still in contact with the teachers from those two buildings. We still do common planning together, even though we're not in the same building. We do a lot of sharing of information and ideas across. So I think I'm really glad that I have that connection with those teachers because I think that's very powerful. And now I'm at Goodlettsville this year. I'm teaching 7th grade ELA in science. My most recent benchmarks with my students, now granted, this is something I have a lot of experience with, so I know how to write the questions and such, but right now my ELA students are 88% proficient and advanced on the last benchmark. My science students are 66% proficient and advanced. My students know data. They know their data. They know what it needs to look like. And we talk about it constantly. And we are doing quite a bit of writing emphasis. The feedback is so important because how are they to know what they need to do to improve unless they get feedback that is constructive and revision. We did quite a bit of that. So that's my story. And I'm still hanging in there. This is year 31. So I'm still planning on year 32. So we'll see how it goes.
Does anyone have any questions for Debbie? Christian?
Thank you. This is very powerful presentation. What do the interventions look like?
Sure. We would pull small groups of students, so it was a very fluid situation. Based on the benchmarks, you might have 4 kids that have this deficit in let's say cause and effect or text structures or something, and they really need extra information. We'd pull that group until we saw through the data and through the assessments that they'd gotten it, and then they would move back in and then we'd get another group. So it was very fluid. It wasn't that, okay, so you're in this spot and you're in it for a semester and you're not going to move, and it was very fluid. And I think that probably is one of the key things the teachers would tell you that really worked because we could target students' exact deficits and work on them.
Any other questions of Debbie? All right. Can we give them a round of applause? I just asked them to do it. I didn't even know what they were going to say, but thank you.